What if the entire spiritual path, the endless search for enlightenment, is based on a cosmic mistake, a case of mistaken identity? We are taught to see the journey as a climb, a monumental effort to become something more, something awakened, something divine. We strive, we practice, we discipline the self, hoping to one day earn a glimpse of the ultimate reality. But what if that very striving, that very sense of a self who needs to be improved, is the dream from which we need to awaken? Imagine a life that wasn't a search for the divine, because from the very first breath, it was a pure expression of it. A being who never learned the scriptures, because her own presence was a living who never followed a master, because the ultimate reality moved through her spontaneously, completely, and without effort. This isn't a myth from a forgotten age. This was the life of Sri Anandamayi Ma. Her existence poses the most profound question we can ask. What if enlightenment is not something we achieve, but something we are, buried under the identity we pretend to be? What we're about to explore isn't just the story of a remarkable woman. It's a direct challenge to the foundation of the spiritual search itself. It's a clue that the divine isn't a distant destination to be reached, but our very point of origin, waiting to be remembered. So, what is this self that we work so hard to improve? The common view is that consciousness is something we have, a personal possession, like a lamp that illuminates our little corner of the verse. We polish this lamp, feed it with knowledge, and protect it from the winds of chaos, hoping its light will grow brighter. But what if the opposite is true? What if consciousness is not something we possess, but what we are? What if we are not the lamp, but the light itself, pretending to be a lamp? Advaita Vedanta, the ancient school of non-duality, has a powerful metaphor for this. Imagine the ocean, vast, boundless, and eternal, and on its surface, a single wave rises. That wave has a name, a birth date, a lifespan. It sees itself as separate from all the other waves. It fears crashing on the shore, its own inevitable end. The wave might even embark on a spiritual journey, praying to become as vast and permanent as the ocean it admires. And this is its great, tragic mistake. The wave doesn't need to become the ocean. It already is the ocean. Its entire existence, its form, its movement, is nothing but the ocean expressing itself for a moment. The only problem is its perception. It has forgotten its own nature. We are that wave. We identify with this temporary form, this body, this mind, this story, and we forget the boundless consciousness from which we arise and to which we return. Our entire spiritual search is often just the wave's desperate struggle to become water, failing to see that it is made of nothing. This mistaken identity isn't just a simple error. It's the master illusion, the foundational story upon which we build our entire lives. The mind, in its relentless quest to define, categorize, and understand, acts like a cosmic prism. It takes the single, unbroken light of pure awareness and fractures it into a dizzying spectrum of separate things: me and you, past and future, success and failure, sacred and profane. This is the great paradox of the human condition. The very tool we use to navigate the world, our analytical intellect, is the same tool that constructs the walls of our perceived prison. It creates the I that feels isolated, the ego that feels threatened, and the seeker who feels incomplete. Imagine being a character in a profound dream, a character who becomes aware that they are in a dream and desperately wants to meet the dream. The character could meditate for 1,000 years, perform heroic deeds, recite every sacred text, but it would never succeed. Why? Because the character cannot meet the dreamer. It can only awaken as the dreamer. The search itself is part of the dream's logic. This is what the Zen masters pointed to with the concept of the gateless gate. There is no door to break down between you and reality, because no door was ever built. There is only a dream of separation to awaken from. Our suffering, our deepest anxieties, all stem from this single point of misidentification. The fear of death is the wave's fear of the shore. The feeling of loneliness is the wave forgetting it is the entire ocean. The endless hunger for validation is the wave seeking its worth from other waves, blind to the infinite value it already embodies. This isn't just a beautiful idea, it's a radical shift in perspective. It suggests that the goal isn't to build a better self, but to see through the illusion of a separate self altogether. The work is not one of addition, but of subtraction, of unlearning. So, if our entire reality is structured around this fundamental case of mistaken identity, what does a life lived without that illusion even look like? What happens when a human being is born with the ocean's memory fully intact from the very beginning? The universe, it seems, decided to answer that very question. It ran an experiment in the form of a woman born in a humble Bengali village in 1896, a being who would come to be called Anandamayi Ma. She was the living proof, the exception that revealed the rule. From her earliest moments, Her life was a perfect reflection of a consciousness that had never been fractured by the prism of a separate self. She was not a person learning about the ocean. She was the ocean contained within a human tide pool, fully aware of its own boundless nature. Observers described her as a child who was detached, serene, often lost in long silences and deep trances. To a world of waves, this looked like a defect. But from the perspective of non-duality, it was the opposite. It was the absence of the wave's anxiety, the non-existence of an ego that needed to assert itself. It said she would communicate with plants and unseen beings, not as a fantasy, but as the ocean recognizing itself in all its myriad form. This wasn't a personality, it was a presence. Then, between the ages of 17 and 25, the silent ocean within her began to move. Spontaneously, without any training, any guru, or any study of the scriptures, her body erupted with ancient wisdom. During devotional chants, she would fall into states of absolute stillness for hours. At other times, her body would flow through complex and intricate yogic postures and sacred hand gestures, or mudras, with a precision that seasoned yogis spend a lifetime trying to master. This is the central mystery. Where did this knowledge come from? The Zen tradition speaks of Wu Wei, effortless action, or action without a doer. The Vedanta describes the divine Lila, the cosmic play where God is the only actor. In Anandamayi Ma, these were not theories. This was the body spontaneously remembering its cosmic grammar. It was the direct expression of shunyata, the dynamic emptiness from which all forms arise. She wasn't doing yoga. Consciousness was simply expressing its own inherent architecture through her body. For years, she remained in silence, not as a discipline, but as a natural state. It was the silence of the ocean beneath the noise of the waves. She didn't have a path, because she was the destination. She famously said, "Before I came to this earth, I was the same. As a little girl, I was the same. I grew into womanhood, but still, I was the same." This wasn't the statement of a static personality. It was the voice of awareness itself, the timeless, unchanging screen upon which the movie of a life plays. Anandamayi Ma's life demonstrates that the ultimate truth is not a philosophy to be learned, but a reality to be embodied. So what wisdom emerges from a consciousness that has never known separation? What does the ocean, speaking through the voice of a human wave, have to teach us? What Ma offered was not a set of rules, but a living transmission. Her teachings were a mirror, reflecting the core principles of non-dual reality in a way that could be applied to any life. Let's explore the heart of this wisdom, not as a philosophy, but as a practical guide for navigating our own existence. The first principle is radical acceptance. This is not the passive resignation of a victim, but the active, intelligent recognition that everything that arises in your experience is a manifestation of the whole. Ma once said, "Duality is pain. The source of all suffering is the mind's habit of labeling experiences as good or bad, wanted or unwanted." This means that your anxiety, your joy, your confusion, your moments of clarity, they are not your personal property. They are movements of the one consciousness. The practice here isn't to try to feel good all the time, but to meet every experience with an unconditional yes. Think of it like this. When you watch a movie, you don't jump up and try to fix the villain or pause the screen on the hero's victory forever. You understand it's all part of the story. Radical acceptance is learning to watch the movie of your life with that same wisdom. The bridge to practice is to ask, what am I resisting right now? Not to change it, but simply to notice the subtle war the mind is waging against the present moment. That noticing is the beginning of peace. The second principle is what Ma called the art of staying. This is perhaps her most subtle and powerful teaching. It is not a meditation technique, it is a way of being. In our daily lives, we are constantly in motion, not just physically, but mentally. We are running from discomfort, chasing pleasure, fixing problems, planning the next moment. Staying is the practice of gently ceasing that inner momentum. It means resting in the silent awareness that is always present, behind the noise of thoughts and feelings. When a difficult emotion arises, the impulse is to analyze it, suppress it, or act on it. The art of staying is to simply let it be there, to feel it fully in the body, without giving it a story. You can anchor this in your human experience. Imagine you're sitting by a river. Thoughts and feelings are like leaves floating by on the current. The practice of staying isn't to stop the river or catch the leaves. It's to remember that you are the silent, unmoving riverbed, simply witnessing it all flow past. The practical application is to take even 30 seconds during your day to stop, feel your feet on the ground, and do absolutely nothing. Just stay. In that gap, you remember who you truly are. The third principle is the dissolution of the doer. This is the key that unlocks true freedom. We live under the constant, exhausting burden of believing we are the sole author of our lives, the doer of all actions. Ma's life demonstrated that a higher intelligence can operate through us when we get out of the way. She would say, "Make it as if it is the divine's work done through you as its instrument." This doesn't mean becoming passive. It means acting with your full energy and attention, but without being attached to the outcome, without the ego claiming credit or blame. Think about how your own body works. Your heart beats, your lungs breathe, your cells divide. An incredible intelligence is at work, and you are not doing any of it. What if your actions in the world could flow from that same selfless intelligence? The bridge to practice is to shift your inner language. Instead of "I have to do this," try framing it as, "This is what is happening through me now." This small shift from personal ownership to impartial observation dissolves the root of anxiety. Funny how the oldest advice in the world is to know thyself. It's still the hardest final boss to beat. If these ideas resonate with you, consider subscribing so we can continue this journey together. Finally, the fourth principle is the recognition of the one in all. Ma saw no separation. To her, every person, every animal, every object was the divine in a different costume. This is not a belief. It is the natural consequence of non-dual realization. In our daily lives, this translates into a powerful practice of compassion and reverence. When you interact with someone, you are not just interacting with a personality. You are the universe interacting with itself. An anchor for this is to look for the light in others, especially those you find difficult. Behind their personality, their defenses, their story, there's the same silent awareness that is in you. The practice isn't about liking everyone. It's about recognizing the shared essence that lies beneath all surfaces. The question to ask is, if I knew this person was the divine in disguise, how would my response change? This is not a path of becoming something you are not. It is a path of unbecoming everything you thought you were, so that what you truly are can finally be revealed. We've explored these profound principles, this map for seeing reality as it is. But even in this, there is a subtle trap. The mind can take all this knowledge and simply create a new, more spiritual identity. The me who was a seeker can become the me who is a non-dual practitioner. The ego is clever. It can wear the robes of a monk as easily as a suit and tie. And this is where Anandamayi Ma's very existence delivers the final, soul-shattering plot twist. The central revelation isn't just that you are the ocean. The true mind bend is that the wave never existed in the first place. Think about it. What is a wave? Is it a separate thing? Or is it just a temporary pattern, a movement of the water? You can't take a bucket, scoop out the wave, and separate. The moment you do, it's just water. The wave was never a noun. It was always a verb, a process, an action. Now apply this to yourself. What if the you that you believe yourself to be, that continuous character, the past, a present, and a future, the one who is listening to these words right now, is not an entity at all? What if you are not a noun, but a verb, a process, a temporary patterning of universal consciousness? The entire spiritual journey is predicated on the idea of a self that can be improved, that can become enlightened, that can merge with God. But what if there is no self to enlighten? What if enlightenment is the sudden, shocking recognition that the seeker was a ghost all along? This isn't just a philosophical game of word. It points to the very fabric of our moment-to-moment experience. We feel like a continuous I. We remember what I did yesterday, and I plan for tomorrow. But where is this I actually located? Is it in your thoughts? Thoughts arise and disappear like clouds. Is it in your feelings? Emotions surge and recede like tides. Is it in your body? The body is a colony of trillions of cells, constantly changing, replacing itself. The you of 7 years ago is physically a completely different person. Neuroscience can't find a central command module in the brain, you. It finds only a massively parallel network of processes. The self-wheel is a story, a narrative constructed by the mind to connect a series of disconnected moments. It's a useful story for survival, but a story nonetheless. Imagine watching a movie. You see a character on the screen, let's say a hero on a quest. Frame by frame, light and shadow dance to create the illusion of a continuous person moving through a coherent world. But there is no actual hero. There is only the screen and the light. The hero is a pattern, a ghost created by the rapid succession of still images. The Vedanta and Zen masters would say, you are the screen upon which the character appears. You are the silent, empty, aware space that allows the entire movie of life to happen. This is why, when asked who she was, Anandamayi Ma's answers were so beautifully paradoxical. I am whatever you think I am, she might say. Or she would refer to herself as this body. She wasn't being evasive. She was pointing to the truth that, from her perspective, there was no central I to claim ownership. There was only the cosmic, the Lila, unfolding itself. This is the ultimate paradox. The final teaching of a being like Anandamayi Ma isn't a piece of knowledge to be acquired by the self. It's the complete annihilation of the very idea of a self that could acquire anything. It's not about you finding the light. It's about the light realizing it was dreaming it was you. The real revolution, then, is not in changing your life, but in questioning the very existence of the one who lives it. What if the goal isn't to find the answers, but to dissolve the questioner? And with that, the entire structure of reality flips. The question is no longer, how do I become free? The question becomes, who is it that believes they are not free? So, what now? If the self is an illusion, do we simply stop functioning? Do we abandon our responsibilities, our relationships, our work? This is the great fear of the ego, as it senses its own dissolution. It equates a loss of self with a loss of life. But Anandamayi Ma's own existence shows us the exact opposite is true. The end of the separate self is not the end of life. It is the beginning of a life lived with extraordinary clarity, purpose, and love. When the illusion of the doer vanishes, action doesn't cease. It becomes more potent, more spontaneous, more intelligent. It is no longer driven by the anxious, self-serving agenda of the ego. Instead, it becomes a harmonious expression of the cosmic order. This is the true meaning of living of being an instrument for the divine. You don't have to figure everything out, because the same intelligence that grows the forests and spins the galaxies is operating through your relationships. Also transform. When you no longer see others as separate entities to be judged, used, or feared, you can finally meet them, another expression of oneself. Love ceases to be a transaction. What can you do for me? And becomes a recognition. You see yourself in the eyes of another. This is why a being like Ma could approach a beggar with profound reverence. She saw God meeting God. And what of ethics and morality? Does a life without a separate self lead to nihilism? Again, no. It leads to the most profound and unshakable ethical foundation. Harmful actions, greed, cruelty, selfishness, are born from the illusion of separation. They are the desperate attempts of a frightened wave to protect itself from the rest of the ocean. When you know, not as a belief, but as a direct experience, that you are the whole, harming another becomes unthinkable. It would be like your left hand trying to intentionally injure your right. True compassion arises naturally from this unity. The imperative is no longer do good, but the simple, effortless expression of a being who knows no other way. This awakening carries with it a quiet responsibility, not the burden of saving the world, but the responsibility of no longer adding to its confusion. It's the responsibility to live from a place of truth, to meet each moment with presence, and to embody the peace that comes from knowing who you truly are. It's a shift from asking, what can I get from the universe, to asking, what does the universe want to express through me? In the end, the life of Sri Anandamayi Ma is not a story to be simply admired from a distance. It is a mirror. It reflects back to us the most profound and unsettling possibility about our own nature. Her presence on this earth was a living koan, a Zen riddle that cannot be solved by the mind, but only dissolved into. She was the proof of concept, the living demonstration that it is possible for a human being to exist in this world as a pure, unfiltered expression of the divine, as a wave that never forgot it was the ocean. She showed us that the state of enlightened consciousness is not a supernatural, but the natural state of a being who has been stripped of all illusion. Her final words, spoken or not, resonate with this ultimate simplicity. Whatever comes, let it come. Whatever goes, let it go. What remains is the real. This is not a command. It is a description of reality. It is an invitation to stop clinging to the fleeting patterns of the wave and to relax into the boundless, eternal nature of the ocean that we are. This leaves us with the ultimate cosmic dilemma, a question that should echo in the quietest corners of our being. We look at a being like Anandamayi Ma, and we might be tempted to call her a miracle, a divine incarnation, something separate and far above us. But what if that is the ego's final and most clever trick to avoid the terrifying implications of her existence? What if her life wasn't a demonstration of her divinity, but a demonstration of the divinity that lies dormant in us? What if she is not the exception, but the blueprint, the potential that resides, silent and unrecognized, behind every pair of human eyes? The question she leaves us with is not, who was she, but the far more important one. Who are you, really, when you stop pretending to be just a wave? Liked this journey? Hit subscribe for more mystery, and that's our hunt for now. A wild mix of documented history and tantalizing what-ifs based on bibliographical sources. What do you think?